Hello listeners and welcome back. In honor of Valentine's Day, I want to discuss a few romance movies. These are not your classic usual works that you would get. This list will consist of the more unheard of, more underrated, but still just as good romances. So first I want to talk about Love and Honor. If you like a good soldier's romance, this is definitely for you. Taking our leading roles, we have Liam Hemsworth as Mickey and Teresa Palmer as Candace, and supporting leads with Austin Stonewall as Dalton and Amy T. Garden as Jupiter. Mickey and Dalton are out away surviving the Vietnam War, and all Dalton wants to do is get back to his girlfriend. So when he receives a disturbing letter saying she wants to break up, he takes the first chance he gets to go see her. Mickey, wanting to support his friend and never want to turn down a good story, tags along for the ride. This movie is so good yet so underrated. It is the perfect romance and the perfect movie, especially for those who love their soldier romance. We actually get to follow two romances throughout the movie. We follow Dalton as he tries to win back Jennifer. Dalton and Jennifer's is very much a second chance romance, mixed in with the possibilities of love and loss.
I've got this picture in my head. You, me, the house, kids, having our folks over for Sunday barbecues. But that's not the picture in your head anymore, is it, Juniper? What?
You called me Juniper.
That's who you are now.
Meanwhile, we also get to watch Mickey and Candace meet and form a relationship despite their different personalities, with Candace being more proper, like she doesn't like to drink much despite her environment and friends.
So you don't drink, you don't get high, and you don't eat rats. You're not very much fun, are you?
No, I guess not.
And then with Mickey with always being outgoing and known for his crazy, exaggerated stories.
Man, if I would have known that it was going to end up like this, here in the clouds with two of the loveliest angels I've ever laid eyes on.
The two make a very beautiful yet unlikely couple that you're bound to fall in love with. Letters to Juliet is another very good yet very underrated romance recommendation. This romantic comedy stars Amanda Seyfried as Sophie and Christopher Eggen as Charlie. Sophie joins a volunteer group of women who respond to letters written to Juliet from women seeking romantic advice. When Sophie finds a letter written by a woman named Claire, she decides to respond. Not long after, Sophie not only gets a response, but finds that she has inspired Claire to come to Verona in search of her long-lost love. This movie screams romance in every sense of the word. It's literally called Letters to Juliet, referring to Romeo and Juliet. In this movie, we get to again follow two separate romances. Obviously, we have Claire's story as we follow her search for Verona for her long-lost Lorenzo.
I'd go to meet him after class to the farm where he was working, and we'd sit under the trees and we'd share some bread.
So romantic.
Then of course we follow Sophie as she tags along for this adventure, and we watch her form a sort of enemies to lovers relationship with Charlie, Claire's grandson, who has also decided to tag along.
Thoughtful letter. What were you thinking?
I was thinking that she deserved an answer.
Are you joking? Could you imagine what would have happened if she hadn't seen sense?
Well, yeah, you wouldn't be here, and that would be an upside.
This movie is very underrated because despite it being a romantic comedy, it still has a very deep and rich story within it. We have Claire and Lorenzo's story that is very powerful, and it also can be very inspiring watching Sophie learn who she is and what she wants. Overall, Letters to Juliet is just a really good, fun time and is bound to keep you smiling and feeling giddy. Next, we have to talk about Flipped, again, another super underrated romance. I absolutely adore this movie and I hope many of you do too. If you have not seen it or heard of it, this is definitely your sign to go and watch because you will not be disappointed. In this beautiful coming of age romance, we follow Julie, who is smitten with the dazzling brown eyes of the boy next door, Bryce Lowski. Julie has been obsessed with Bryce since second grade. Bryce, however, pays her no attention and finds himself actively avoiding her.
Right, come up here, it's fun.
I can't. My dad needs me to help him fix a thing.
When they hit 8th grade, however, Julie starts to lose interest in Bryce. She starts to see that maybe he's not the boy she always thought he was.
I just don't get it, Bryce. Why didn't you just tell me? Was he really sorry? Or was he just saying these things to make himself feel better?
Just as this happens, however, Bryce finds that he's taken a liking to Julie. He can't seem to stop thinking about how mesmerizing, interesting, and shockingly even beautiful she is.
Julie Baker had always just seemed plain to me. Until now. I was slipping, man, and it was time to get a grip.
Some may say that this movie is a little immature, and although that is true, we are following 8th graders, so you're kind of expecting the behavior and storyline to be a bit immature. However, in saying this, you can still find that there is a lot of maturity mixed within it as well, from Julie on how she held herself and sees the world.
I could sit there for hours looking out at the world. Some days the sunsets would be purple and pink, and some days they were a blazing orange, setting fire to the clouds on the horizon.
To Bryce for how he learns to change for the better.
I didn't care what they thought. I liked Julie Baker.
It's also fun to note that this movie takes place in the 50s and 60s, so you're not only watching a story of young love, but young love that was in an era for technology, which is a different and refreshing concept. Overall, Flipped is a super underrated good time that I cannot recommend enough. Next, I want to talk about Time. I feel like this is probably more of a popular recommendation than some on this list, but I still feel like it deserves a spot on this list because not only is it the perfect heartfelt romance, as it is still very underrated despite the story that it is. In this beautiful heartfelt romance, we follow Tim, who possesses the power to travel in time. We watch Tim as he uses this power to improve his future and start a life with Mary, the woman he fell in love with. This movie showcases a lot of tropes like family, furthering your career, and of course love. It showcases all the different stages of relationships to meeting and falling in love, to getting married, to starting a family and growing with that family. Even though this movie is filled with a lot of deep and powerful moments, it still is able to keep itself very down to earth and funny. The story is still very relatable despite it being about a man with time travel abilities, because although he possesses power to move within time, you still very much follow the story of his life and the mundane simplicities and complexes that come with everyday life that everyone can relate to. This movie really has everything you need for the perfect romance, so it's about time you go and watch it. Finally, we have to talk about Definitely Maybe. And why does no one ever talk about this movie? I absolutely love this movie. It is super freaking good, yet somehow super underrated. No one ever seems to acknowledge or talk about this movie, and I don't understand how, considering the cast. This movie is chock full with stars such as Ryan Reynolds, Abigail Breslin, Elisa Fisher, Rachel Weisz, and Elizabeth Banks. In this sweet, light-hearted comedy, we follow Will Hayes in the midst of a divorce. Maya, his daughter, wants to understand what went wrong, so she gets him to tell her about his life before marriage. But there's a twist, as Will had 3 main love interests in his life before he got married. With Will changing all the names, it keeps Maya and the audiences guessing on who the mum could be.
I'm gonna tell you the story, and I'm not telling you who your mom is.
Fine.
You're just gonna have to figure it out for yourself.
Good.
And I'm changing all the names and some of the facts.
I like it. It's like a love story mystery.
Great. Sounds good. You ready?
Like I said, this movie is super underrated and is never talked about, which I can never understand because not only does it have an all-star cast, but the story is also beautiful, unique, and engaging. It is super romantic and light-hearted while still having some edge. Another thing that makes this movie so great is how versatile it is. It really has something in there for everyone. Not only is it highly based around the romance, but it also follows Will and his life and how he navigated his career and emotions through that time.
And I had graduated from bagels and toilet paper to signs and bumper stickers.
Jesus! Murphy! What am I doing here?
It showcases all sorts of different relationships, such as friendships, lovers to enemies,
If you hand this in, we won't survive it.
second chance romances,
Emily.
friends to lovers,
Poor April, who's always been the friend. Then she realized she doesn't just want to be the friend. She wants to be the girlfriend.
a newly single dad and daughter relationship really is just perfect for everyone. So if you've not seen this movie, please go watch it, and if you have seen it, let's start giving it the hype it deserves. Shine all the love that it's given us back at it. Definitely maybe is the perfect romance every time, all the time, so a better time to watch than Valentine's Day. That is all for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed these recommendations and hopefully got a few new recommendations of some underrated or maybe even unheard of romances. Let me know what some of your favorite romances are to watch this Valentine's season, and what are some movies you reckon I should have included. That is all for this episode. As always, everything we discussed will be linked below along with my socials. Please be sure to like, subscribe and follow. Feel free to leave all your thoughts and comments below. Thanks for listening.